Hello, everybody. This is Michael from Spades Consulting. So, this is going to be a quick one, but it's something that you have to pay attention to, and it's something that you definitely have to try to front run. Okay. Now, we're seeing it particularly in the silver market that, as it collapses increasingly, more and more pressure is leaning towards establishing, maintaining, and utilizing high touch connections. Okay. This is going to happen to every single market as the economy continues to unwind and as we get closer to hyperinflation, crack up, boom, that kind of situation. Essentially, so we already know that markets are largely manipulated and pricing is not just non-existent, pricing is horse shit, all right, compared to what prices should be for certain commodities, certain things, certain assets. It's all out of whack. Okay. As the situation gets worse, the markets, the just plain callous dead markets where you could just go into the market, put in to buy something, and actually have it show up. That's going to vanish. Just like with how the silver market's going to break when it comes to coffee, when it comes to soybeans, when it comes to metal ores, when it comes to refined products, sheet metal, ounces of silver, ounces of gold, platinum, palladium, any of it. The coffee, the tea, all of it, the actual commodities, the actual value, the commodities are going to separate from the markets. So the markets, they'll still exist for the purposes of putting on the show, keeping the circus going. But you're seeing it with silver, you're going to see it with more and more markets, and the oil market as well. The oil price is going to increase because of the tension with Iran. All right, that's obvious. Decent. If there's any major issue with Iran when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz and the risk there, um, it's going to be a problem. Now, if you are reliant on trading in the markets, of course, prices are going to soar. But if you just recently acquired a whole hell of a lot of oil, on the other hand, less so. All right. If you have existing high touch connection deals where you are going to get access to, let's say you're a refinery and you're going to get access to that sweet, sweet oil that we've been stealing from all over the planet. Okay. The markets aren't going to have any physical anything in them in time. Soon enough, your ability to get coffee, tea, oil, gold, silver, any of the lumber, any of the commodities is going to come down to individuals and businesses, corporations, etc., having direct deals with the companies that produce. It's not going to go to market anymore. It's going to be the companies that actually produce, the people who actually produce, being contacted to produce. All right. The idea of keeping stock on hand is going to disintegrate. Inventories are going to disintegrate. All right. If you can't get a company to guaranteed call in an order like, hey, we're going to need X amount of coffee this month or next month or this year or next year, without those high touch connections, actual production is not going to happen. All right. Pricing is going to have to come as a means from the mean, from the average of all of the companies coming together one by one and contacting actual suppliers. We're moving into the world of actual goods, actual commodities, actual resources. All right. The paper markets, just like with the stock market, how it hasn't reflected reality for, oh God, how many years? Over 20, 26. We could say it started in 2000, 2001. Just like how the stock market hasn't reflected reality for a long time, right? You can even say it goes all the way back to the 80s. You're going to see it with commodities. As more and more pressure and the inflation mounts and we get closer to the crack up boom, commodity prices and paper markets, they're still going to exist, they're still going to function, but actually getting the end product, all right, buying a silver contract and actually getting the silver, buying coffee, all right, and actually getting it, all right, any of this, any of this is going to fall away. If you as a company produce or, well, process coffee, you're going to have to go directly to the people who grow it. If you need sheet metal, you're going to have to go directly to the people who are refining it and processing it. All right. The market's going to collapse. All right. It's not going to be exactly the end of the world doomsday collapse like most people are expecting. It's a slow shift to where the paper market and the paper nominal dream separates from reality entirely and has no actual backing or basis by reality, because if any of the markets increasingly are limited by reality, they will collapse. They will actually collapse. Okay? But by keeping the paper market alive, and even though the actual resources, the thing that's supposed to be traded, exchanged, sold, no longer has any influence on it, if you keep the paper markets going, you have another avenue of speculation. You have another game in the casino. All right. So you have to watch out for this. Going forward, if you as an individual need something regularly, you have to harden supply lines and you have to set up direct connections whenever possible. This is more so for the companies, less so for the people. All right. Although, as an average person, eventually the prices of groceries will actually be incredibly far out of reach. All right. Eventually, the ability to get gas at a gas station will be out of reach. You will have to go to people who can actually distill their own fuels. All right. Various kinds, whether it's biodiesel, straight ethanol, any of that. You will have to go to people increasingly in order to get those things. The West is, we've got a pretty high chance of the entire Western world collapsing into actual third world status, not just the look, but the actual principle, the actual feel of it. And we do have the risk of hyperinflation with it. Going forward, of course, it's not just fuels. To harden your supply lines, you want to know all of the people who grow stuff around you, or who are willing, or who can, and start investing in that. All right. This goes back to a video I put out a while back talking about investing in people. It's critical. All right. Because what was it? Not too long ago, I started noticing that a lot of the properties that I pass by, all right, whenever I'm traveling around doing shit, whenever I go past these properties, more and more of them are setting up stands, and well, given this was before winter, they're setting up stands and they're selling their own produce, the shit that they grow, the shit that they make on their front lawn. All right. This is big. All right. Give me just a second. All right. And I'm back. All right. People selling product. All right, this is going to be important for food. This is going to be important for fuel one day. This is going to be a critical part of everything. Okay. Economies are becoming more localized as the supply chains continue to grind and devolve. Okay. So you are going to see individuals doing this. You're going to see households doing this. People just setting up gardens in the lawn and hopefully not poisoning the shit. But you're going to see more and more people trying to turn what used to be their lawn into a money producing asset, and they're going to start turning their woods into money producing assets. They're going to start taking advantage of what they have physically at their fingertips. Okay? That's the future. All right? The future looks a lot like the past. All right? Eventually, what you'll start to see is essentially the reformation of old market styles. All right, where instead of trying to sell things off your front lawn, eventually you will start seeing, flea markets will lose the flea designation. It won't be just random junk anymore. It'll be like actual markets, the way things started, where people take what they grow, what they produce, what they can make, and they move it to a central location where everybody can just buy and sell there when it comes to physical goods. All right, that's where we're moving. If we go down the dark path as a country and everything starts failing and collapsing, that's the future. All right. The alternative, of course, is AI techno communism, which will they let the AI bubble burst? They're going to try not to, but that risk is always there. If the AI bubble were to burst, obviously you destroy the markets right there because pretty much all the growth, like, I think half of the Russell 2000 started off the year in the negative, and the majority of companies, like any company that is not directly connected to AI, they're fucked. They're fucked. All right. If you are not selling AI products, working towards development of AI products, if you're not into that at all, your earnings are dropping. Just on the base inflation alone, your earnings are dropping, and there is an incredible amount of pressure. Like, we have so many apexes that we're coming to. We've got the inflation apex, we've got wage pressures, we've got companies that honestly, a lot of their business models just don't work anymore, and they don't have the means to persist in a high inflationary environment. The government and the Fed will float out the idea that it's 2% inflation. It's not. It is not. It is roughly 10% every single year since like the 1980s, or what was it? Not 1980. 1980 was when they changed how they calculate it. Oh, I think it was 1995. 1995, 10% inflation every single year. The reason why most people didn't feel it up until Koof and the shit show that came from that, which we're still fucking dealing with, the reason why most people didn't feel it is because all of the inflation was happening to the asset prices. It was going into housing, it was going into college education, it was going into all of this other shit, which largely contained it. But as supply lines started grenading and the global situation started to shift, all of a sudden the money started leaking out of the markets. And this is one thing, this is actually a side note for the boomers who have incredibly, solid retirements. When we get to a certain point, like if all the boomers start cashing out their retirement accounts, to actually retire, if they all start cashing out their accounts, there's not going to be anybody left to buy the stocks and shares that are supposedly worth 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times what they paid for them. And it's the same situation with housing. All right, you look at housing in this country, there's no buyers. All right, like if there is a large amount of properties that end up on the market, there is not a deep supply of buyers anywhere for it. Even BlackRock doesn't want to touch these houses anymore. BlackRock, Blackstone, all of them, they don't want to touch them because now there's sovereign risk attached to it. Even if you take the sovereign risk away, nobody can afford to maintain prices this high. The working class in the United States is crippled. All right. The businesses are largely crippled. There's no stability left in the system. It's not going to take too much more. And I stand by the idea that 2026, this year, we're going to see, honestly, at this point, not just something big, but some things big. We're going to see major changes this year. And some of those changes, one of those changes might be the full broad scale collapse of the federalized system, the collapse of the markets and the market economy, the overall collapse of American capitalism. Might see the collapse of Europe, China as well, for different reasons. Honestly, the global situation is not good. It's not good. But focusing on the base level, if you need things or you know you are going to need things going into the future, set up high touch connections. Know the people who either run the companies, the organizations, the manufacturers, either know them or know their workforce who can slip equipment out the side door, essentially. If you want to be able to ensure future stability, you've got to start today. All right. Everybody knows you can't just work one job in the United States in a lot of areas to float by. Increasingly, not just do you have to work one job, you have to work two, maybe three, possibly a side hustle. And then on top of that, you also have to find something that you can produce and start to produce it. All right. Not a whole lot of it, but a decent amount. So at least you have physical things that you can bring to the table. Okay. He who has the stuff, it's changing. All right. It used to be he who has the gold makes the rules. The world is shifting to whoever has the commodities makes the rules. And it doesn't matter what the commodity is. All right. Because they are all going to be incredibly sought after. All right. You're going to see coffee disappear. You're going to see sugar start to disappear. You're going to see more supply disruptions. And they're going to get worse. All right. And you're going to see more fuck ups too. That's another thing. Fuck ups down the production chain. General instability is going to continue to get worse for this country and the world. All right. And then you also have to take into account fifth gen warfare. Because random things like what was it? There was a cold and flu medicine recall because of either rat shit or rat poison, possibly contaminating cold and flu medicine. Now, some people may, sit back and say, oh, it could have been an honest accident. Here's the problem. There's been a lot of quote unquote honest accidents happening in the food and medicine supply chains, as well as automotive supply chains, whether it's parts for semi trucks, consumer vehicles, commercial vehicles, doesn't matter. There's been a shockingly large increase in part failures, like fresh out of the box, the parts are useless. There's been a lot of that. A lot of that. All right. Even, you want to talk about some third world scamming? Oh, God. There was a video or a short that I saw today where it was some dude with black spray paint spraying over rough cut stone and loading it into a bag labeled coal. And it's just like, oh, good God. We're down to that level of economic scamming now. So the situation is indeed getting worse globally. All right. You can't write off that every single one of these recalls that they have to do, you can't write these off as honest mistakes anymore. These are increasingly becoming the norm. And that you cannot, there is no way in hell you accidentally get rat shit into the cold and flu medicine or rat poison, I forget which. There's no way that happens accidentally. All right, just like there's no way that conveniently a whole bunch of parts for semi trucks, I forget which part in particular, but I know it was connected to the emission system, which is critical for semi trucks. A bunch of those were going bad like instantly, and that persisted for like 3 years, where it was part roulette to try to find one that actually worked. These problems are becoming worse, and fifth generation warfare is probably to blame for it. All right. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Even if you can buy foreign made products, you don't necessarily want to buy foreign made products. Increasingly, you're going to have to buy make and buy American made products just so you know the fucking thing works. All right. Or that you're not going to fucking get the cold, catch the flu or something, especially with how nasty the flu has been this year. You don't want to catch the flu, reach for a bottle of a Dayquil or something, and end up fucking dropping dead because it was loaded with uranium 256 or something. It's the entire world's a mess. The entire world's a fucked up mess. Adjust accordingly. All right. And increasingly, as you start to see the shift, like for me, I see the shift in the silver market now. I know it's going to come for oil and any other critical mineral, any other commodity or resource. As you see the shift happen, once you see the market break, it's not even worth paying attention to anymore. All right. Once the market actually breaks and then all of a sudden everything's fine again, but you can never stand for delivery for anything, that's how you know. That's how you know. You're going to see more of it. The problems will persist. Adjust accordingly. If you are interested in personal or business consulting, stop by spadesconsulting.com. If you are interested in more content like this, like, sub, share, hype, and leave a comment. Also have a decent backlog so far of previous work. If you're interested in written content, stop by the Substack. It is linked below in the description box, and you can find it in the nav on the site. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.